board climbing is probably the best way to train for bouldering on real rock. It's simple, but there's enough complexities that transfer really well to actual climbing outside. There's gains from the physical elements of finger strength, body strength, tension, power, and a load of technical elements roll in as well, like tension and footwork and body positioning, that make it an overall package that is pretty hard to beat for training for actual hard bouldering outside. While generic board climbing trains most of the elements that you need for climbing outside, it's still worth considering exactly what angle you want to put your board at, because different angles can quite easily train different skills and different strengths. There can be as much or as little involved in designing and building a board as you want. Not everyone has the time or the inclination to decide on an angle of a board, pick the holes, buy the holes, set the problems, make the problems, etc. For a lot of people, they want a lot of that decision making taken away, and they want access to hundreds and thousands of problems set by other people that they can test themselves on. And if that's you, something like a moonboard's pretty perfect for that. The problems are there, the holes are there in the layout, and you just follow along and climb on problems set by some of the best climbers in the world. However, if you want to go down the route of choosing your own angle, choosing your own holes, choosing your own setup, etc., I'll talk a little bit more about that now. So boards will generally range from between 30 and 50 degrees in angle. Much less than 30 and you end up with the holes being too small and kind of painful to do much with. Much deeper than 50 and the holes kind of have to be too big, and you lose a lot of the finger strength gains that you'd gain from between 30 and 50. So obviously within that range, 30 to 50, if you stay more between 30 and 40, you're getting more elements of finger strength and kind of bigger moves. If you go more between 40 and 50, you're getting more in terms of tension, body power, and kind of swing holding and things like that. For most people, I think 40 is probably about the good middle ground. There's enough tension and body strength involved, and the holes can be kind of small enough to focus a lot on finger strength as well. So the next question you may want to ask is, do you want to build a symmetrical board? So a symmetrical board is where you'll have both sides of the board will have the exact same holes and the exact same orientation on either side. So it's like a mirror. The advantage of obviously having a symmetrical board is you've got the ability to test yourself on both sides. So you can climb the exact same problem on the left and the exact same problem on the right. That's really useful for working out whether you've got imbalances in your body or imbalances in your fingers or your forearms or your legs. And then you can do a lot more on working towards removing those imbalances. The alternative is you have more of like a spray style wall where you literally just take whatever holes you've chosen, put them on the board in any orientation you want, and just set problems yourself, make them up. Obviously then the only thing is you can't try them on both sides, so you're generally then just trying them on one side. The downsides, I would say, of a symmetrical board is you lose a little bit of creativity, because obviously you've got the exact same holes on either side. Also, you need to think about when you're buying the holes, obviously you need to buy the holes in pairs, so you need 2 of every hole, plus you need a bunch of holes for the center. So again, it comes down to how you're going to pick up the holes for the board. The advantage of a more spray style board is obviously you can pick the holes up from roughly anywhere at any time. You can kind of add to them as you go along and not have to pick up a matching pair. It gives you a lot more creativity with setting problems. You've got a lot more freedom of where you put holes and how you orientate them and stuff like that. Obviously the main disadvantage of that style is you don't get the advantage of being able to test yourself on either side. So once you've decided sort of the layout of the board, you're then going to look at holes. So the main decision you've got to make here is wood versus resin. So you can go a mixture of both, or you can go just one or the other. For me personally with this board, I got a mixture of both. Resin is much more aggressive generally, so it's worse on your skin. Your skin will wear through a lot more quickly, which isn't so good if you want to save your skin for climbing outside. Sometimes you may want to actually use the board for conditioning your skin, so the resin holds are actually useful for that. Obviously wood, much less friction, not aggressive on your skin. You can climb on it for a lot longer in terms of session, so hours. With wood as well, you tend to have to squeeze a lot more, and it forces you to use different grip types. Because there's no friction on the wood, you end up having to squeeze a lot more with your fingers and your thumb, rather than with a lot of resin holds you can kind of drag or you can kind of chisel, just because there's that much more friction on them. So again, this is one that different people choose different things. For me, I think it's useful to have a mixture of both. So once you've chosen handholds, you'll then choose footholds. With footholds, again, you can kind of decide on two different systems. You can either use like a feet follow system, so where you stand on the handholds after you've used them for your hands. The alternative to that is to buy and use just set footholds. So buying specific footholds, whether they're resin or wood, and only standing on those with your feet. Or you could do a mixture of both. So for this board, I've done a bit of a mixture of both. I've got some small wooden footholds, and I'm also standing on a lot of the handholds as well. The difference is obviously if you've got a lot of wooden holds, you maybe don't want to stand on the nice wooden handholds you bought, or if there's going to be a lot of people using the board, then there's going to get a lot more traffic and the handholds are going to get worn a lot more quickly. You get a little bit more creativity with a feet follow style. You end up with your feet in some kind of different places. Whereas if you are looking to focus on specific wide moves or specific long locks or tension moves, it may be worth buying a small set of footholds to use specifically for those sort of purposes, where a bigger foothold or a foothold that you've used for your hand wouldn't allow you to get that specific move you're trying to get. If you're going to buy footholds specifically, it's worth thinking about buying some smaller ones and some bigger ones. Obviously the smaller ones are a bit better for the tension moves, trying to keep your feet on. The bigger ones are a little bit more useful for kind of locky moves, or moves where you want to focus a bit more on the body and the arms, or slow moves where it's a bit easier to keep that foot on. Obviously, either whether you're using resin or wooden handholds, you want to think about hold types. So you want to try and have a nice range of stuff like crimps, pinches, jugs, things to use for undercuts, side pulls, maybe a few pockets if that's what you're into. Just a nice wide range of holds. Once you've got all your holds, it may seem pretty easy, you just plaster all the holds on the board and carry on. But again, there's as much or as little as you want to think about in terms of setting the board itself, putting the holds on. So my friend Dan Turner did a really good video on this, on how to set up a board for climbing. So I'll put a link to that here. So go and watch that video and it'll explain it a lot more easily, and you'll see what I mean. So when you've decided on angle, you've decided on handholds, footholds, you've set the board, the next thing you're going to do is climb. Again, you can just jump on, start climbing, set your problems, carry on. There is again stuff you can think about if you want to think about it. Stuff like setting warm-up circuits, setting specific problems to focus on specific things, setting circuits of problems, setting like an easier circuit, setting project circuits, how to plan a session, all these kind of things. So I'll probably do another video on some of those. So if you're interested, check out the next one.